Have you ever wondered why a man, confident, composed, seemingly impenetrable, suddenly loses all certainty when she walks into the room without saying a word? There's something ancient in her silence, something that echoes through the chambers of his unconscious like the footsteps of a ghost he thought he'd buried. She doesn't need to speak. Her presence is enough. It's not her beauty, though it may be striking. It's not her words, for she rarely indulges in the performative. No, it's the unseen gaze, her invisible awareness, that strips the ego bare and pierces straight through the persona he spent years perfecting. Carl Jung called it the anima, the inner feminine archetype within the male psyche. When a man meets a woman whose energy resonates with his unconscious anima, the effect is nothing short of devastating. Not because she harms him, but because she reveals him. And most men are not ready to meet themselves. He stumbles over his own tongue. His thoughts cloud. His confidence, once solid as stone, becomes liquid in her nearness. But why? Why does a mere glance, sometimes not even directed at him, shake his very core? Because her gaze is not merely of the eyes. It is the soul's witnessing. She sees the man beneath the mask, not through effort, but through presence. She doesn't seek to control. She doesn't need to impress. She is the embodiment of still power, and in that stillness, his shadow quivers. The stoic man, who has weathered storms and led armies, is undone not by chaos, but by calm. This woman carries the storm inside her, not as violence, but as knowing. She knows what he hides. She knows what he fears. She may not say a word, but he feels it. Her intuitive understanding of what he refuses to face. The childhood shame, the unspoken insecurities, the quiet desperation to be seen, truly seen, and yet the simultaneous terror of being exposed. She is not a temptress. She is not a savior. She is a mirror, and that is what men fear most. You might be her. You might be the one who walks into a room and notices how the energy shifts. You see the flicker in their eyes, the sudden posture changes, the unnecessary laughter meant to impress or distract. You didn't ask for this power, but it's there. And when you look too long or speak too little, you begin to notice how easily the masculine mask starts to crumble. It's not cruelty, it's clarity. Some women wield their femininity like a weapon. Others, like her, wear it as a quiet force, an invisible current that commands respect without demand. She is mystery without manipulation. Her power lies in her ability to remain rooted while others sway, to observe without absorbing, to feel without fixing. To the unawakened man, she is danger. Not because she threatens his body, but because she threatens the fortress of illusion he's mistaken for identity. And when she looks at him, not just at his face, but into his soul, he feels something ancient rise from the depths. Guilt, desire, longing, grief, the sacred mess of what it means to be human. And he has no choice but to confront it or run. Many do run. They label her intimidating, confusing, too much. But that's only because they are too little in their own skin, too fractured in their own path of individuation. Jung would call this projection, the disowned parts of himself he places on her. His yearning for wholeness appears in her eyes, and it terrifies him. And yet, for the man who dares stay, who dares hold her gaze, something remarkable unfolds. Not seduction, not conquest, but awakening. Her presence becomes a crucible. The false self begins to burn away. His soul, long exiled to the shadows, starts to stir. He may not understand it. He may fight it. But somewhere deep inside, he knows she is not here to complete him, but to reveal that he was never whole. She is the feminine in her individuated form. She has walked through her own shadows. She has confronted the chaos within and emerged sovereign. Her silence is not emptiness. It is sacred containment. Her softness is not submission. It is the velvet edge of power. Her eyes don't need to be seen to see. Her gaze reaches through dimensions. And it is in that unseen gaze that men begin to fall apart. Not from weakness, but from contact with truth. There is a reason why men forget their words in her presence, why they stammer or become overly polite, why they act like strangers even when they've known her for years. It's not infatuation. It's not admiration. It's a primal recognition, something buried deep within the male unconscious. She touches a wound he has never dared acknowledge, and she does so without lifting a finger. Her energy does not clamor for attention. It withdraws, and in doing so, it invites. She doesn't compete. She doesn't perform. Her silence has a gravitational pull, and it draws from him not lust, but reverence laced with fear. For the more she withholds, the more he must face what arises within. Her very restraint is a spiritual test. He senses that she cannot be possessed, and therein lies the true unraveling. To the man who craves control, she is a paradox. The more he tries to define her, the more she slips through his fingers like smoke. The more he seeks her approval, the more he exposes his own dependency. She doesn't deny connection, but she never hinges her identity on it. And this shakes him, because most men have been taught to measure themselves by their ability to win a woman's attention. But what if the woman sees everything and still refuses to be conquered? That is the death of ego. She is not a siren calling him to pleasure. She is a priestess dragging him to his soul. And few men are ready for that pilgrimage. Not in a world that rewards mass and punishes emotional depth. But when he meets her, when he truly meets her, he begins to see the fractures in his own armor. The loudness of his life begins to sound hollow. His achievements start to feel like dust, for she sees past the performance. She sees the boy behind the man, the ache beneath the bravado. You may have noticed it too, the way men either cling or flee, the way some idolize and others dismiss, the way their compliments carry unease, as if they sense that you are not flattered, only amused. And that amusement isn't pride, it's understanding, because you see the unconscious dance they're caught in. You know they're not responding to you, but to something you reflect, something they lost, something they never made peace with. You are not their mother, not their therapist, not their dream girl. You are a threshold, a reminder, a reflection of the self they abandoned to become a man. This is why her gaze carries power. Not because she seeks to destroy, but because she cannot pretend. She has walked through her own underworld, burned in the fire of self-doubt, crumbled under the weight of societal expectations. She has died and come back whole. Her femininity is not for consumption, it is for awakening. And that awakening does not happen without disruption. The truly awakened woman doesn't need to speak loudly to command a room. She doesn't need to advertise her strength. It emanates from her like a frequency that only the initiated can hear. And to the uninitiated, it is terrifying, because she does not play the game, she does not chase, nor does she beg to be chosen. Her gaze is not desperate, it is discerning. And that, above all, is what makes men crumble. The Stoics knew this quiet power. Seneca wrote that, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." But what is imagination if not the projection of the unconscious? When a man meets a woman who forces him to confront that, he suffers, not because she harms, but because he resists the mirror she holds. She is the storm he avoids within himself. Her presence activates the very thing he has run from: feeling, vulnerability, humanity. And yet for the man willing to lean in, to face himself through her, she becomes not a threat, but a guide, not a reward, but a reckoning. He begins to unlearn the armor. He begins to see that strength is not stoicism alone, but the courage to soften in the right hands. And she does not ask for his surrender. She simply waits to see if he will offer it of his own will. For this is the great dance of polarity, not domination, but reflection, not conquest, but remembrance. And in that dance, the man begins to realize her power is not over him, but within him, calling him home. He may have loved others before. He may have desired, chased, even conquered. But this is different. This is not a woman he can win. This is a woman he must meet, soul to soul, without armor, without pretense, without the numbing shields of logic and charm. And that terrifies him more than any rejection ever could. Because to meet her fully is to meet the parts of himself he has buried beneath titles, routines, achievements. She does not play in shallow waters. She pulls him to the depths, where language loses form and only presence remains. Her silence demands his full attention, not because she asks, but because his psyche needs to answer. His anima recognizes her, not as fantasy, but as a gateway, the gateway to his wholeness. She is not there to please, she is there to awaken. And awakening is never comfortable. There is no script for a man to follow here, no rule book, no strategy that works. What he's used before, the casual confidence, the charismatic seduction, falls flat in her energy because she doesn't respond to the outer man. She responds to truth, his truth. And the moment she senses performance, she retracts, not to punish, but to protect. She knows that some men don't seek connection. They seek a reflection of their ego, and she refuses to be that mirror. She has seen enough of the world's projections. She has felt what it's like to be idealized, only to be demonized when she no longer feeds the illusion. She has learned that the pedestal is just another form of imprisonment, and that most men who place her there do so because they fear meeting her eye to eye. But she is not angry. She is not bitter. She is simply sovereign. Her energy is contained, not closed. She is not cold. She is just no longer willing to be set on fire to keep others warm. She knows her worth not because someone told her, but because she earned it through pain, through solitude, through the long nights of sitting with her own shadows. She has walked through abandonment and betrayal, through the ache of unspoken truths and the weight of silent sacrifices. And now she has nothing to prove. You may feel this within yourself, that quiet power that unnerves the unready. You may feel the tension in rooms where you say little, but everything shifts. That is not coincidence. That is the presence of a woman who no longer seeks to be chosen by those who cannot see. Carl Jung taught that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives and we will call it fate. This is what she does. She makes men conscious. Her presence activates their fate, their unfinished business with the feminine within. And when that happens, they either recoil or rise. And if they rise, it is not to dominate or impress, but to meet, to see, to witness, and be witnessed in return. That, after all, is the sacred union the soul longs for. Not possession, not perfection, but presence, real, raw, unfiltered. She will not beg for that depth. She will not chase the man too afraid to bring it. Instead, she waits in stillness, knowing that the right man will not just be drawn to her mystery, but will have the courage to stand in it, to not fill the silence, to not demand access, to not confuse her distance for disdain. He will know her energy is not a puzzle to solve. It is a temple to enter, with reverence. And when he does, when he stops running from himself, he will find her not as a conquest, but as a mirror. Not as a reward, but as a companion on the path to his own integration. He will see that the gaze he feared was never meant to break him. It was meant to free him from the illusions, from the masks, from the belief that he needed to become more to be worthy of love. She is the storm and the stillness, the wound and the salve, the question and the answer. And once he sees her, not as projection, but as truth, he will understand. He never needed to win her. He only needed to become the version of himself that could meet her. There is something almost mythic about her. She doesn't belong to the world of surface interactions, of empty gestures and hollow flirtations. She walks in another realm, one where time bends and meaning sharpens, and men sense it, even if they can't name it. In her presence, they are transported, out of the mundane and into something archetypal, ancient, sacred. She is the high priestess of the subconscious, cloaked not in mystery to confuse, but to protect the sacred from the profane. The woman who has made peace with her darkness is not easily penetrated by shallow desires. She does not seduce, she summons. And what she summons in him is not passion, but transformation. He doesn't fall for her. He falls through her, through the illusion of who he thought he was, through the fragile scaffolding of a life built to impress, but never to feel. And in that descent, he either breaks or is reborn. Many cannot endure the descent. They call her names, cold, aloof, difficult, demanding. But this is only the ego's cry of protest. He wanted a lover, not a mirror. He wanted reassurance, not revelation. He wanted validation, not vision. But she offers none of those. Instead, she offers something rarer: clarity. Her eyes are not impressed by potential. Her body does not open to manipulation. Her soul does not respond to noise. She lives in vibration, not performance. And because of that, she often walks alone, but never lonely. For she would rather dine with solitude than choke on false connection. And you, if you have ever felt that fire in your silence, that storm in your stillness, you know what it means to be that kind of woman. You've felt the ache of being misunderstood, of being feared for your depth rather than cherished for your light. But you've also tasted the power of presence. And that power is not about dominance, it's about remembrance. For she reminds him of something he forgot, that love is not about escape, but return. Return to the self, return to the heart, return to the places within he dared not go alone. She is not the path, but the signpost, not the healer, but the catalyst, not the goal, but the gateway. He may resist, he may run, he may collapse under the weight of his own avoidance. But if he is brave, if he chooses to stay, he will begin to shed. Layer after layer, identity after identity, until all that remains is essence. And in that nakedness, he will finally see what she saw all along, not weakness, but wonder, not flaws, but fragments waiting to be brought back home. She never wanted to change him. She only wanted to see him. This is why her gaze is so disarming, because it sees without judgment. She doesn't need him to perform, to earn, to persuade. She needs only truth. And in a world drunk on mass, truth is the rarest, rawest kind of intimacy. When he feels her watching, not with the eyes, but with the soul, it cuts through every lie he's told himself. He is no longer the master of his performance. He is a man standing naked before the feminine. Not the physical feminine, but the sacred feminine. The anima that holds both chaos and creation, rage and grace, destruction and rebirth. She embodies it all, not because she tries, but because she is. She has reclaimed the exiled parts of herself. The parts the world told her were too much, too intense, too inconvenient. She has held her pain like prayer and her silence like scripture. And now she walks not in arrogance, but in remembrance. That remembrance stirs something in him, something primal and holy. For the first time, he sees that masculinity is not dominance, but devotion. Not protection as possession, but as presence. Not power over, but power with. And in that space, he begins to understand what she's known all along. That the strongest man is not the one who conquers her, but the one who surrenders his illusions at her feet and says, I am ready. Ready to see, ready to be seen. Ready to begin the only journey that ever mattered, the return to the self. To be truly seen by her is to be undone and remade in the same breath. Not because she demands it, but because she invites it. And her invitation is not spoken. It is encoded in her being. The way she moves, the way she listens, the way she holds space without judgment. It all speaks to a deeper law, an older rhythm. She carries the sacred wound and the sacred wisdom. And because of that, her presence is alchemy. She does not manipulate energy. She simply is the energy that transforms. And in that frequency, a man finds no foothold for ego. There is no ladder to climb, no game to win, no mask to wear. Only the silence of truth pressing into him like moonlight on water, quiet, silver, inescapable. When she turns her gaze inward, it is not withdrawal. It is discernment. She does not give freely what is sacred. She does not share her soul with those who do not know how to hold it gently. This is not arrogance. This is spiritual hygiene. For the woman who has walked through the fire of awakening knows, not every man deserves access. Not every man is ready to touch a temple. And that's what she is, a temple, not made of stone, but of soul. Not built for worship, but for reverence. And if a man comes to her with unclean hands, hands stained with deceit, with projection, With entitlement, he will be turned away. Not by her words, but by her energy. Her boundaries are woven into the very fabric of her presence. Yet for the man who comes bare, with humility instead of hunger, with intention instead of impulse, the temple doors open. Not quickly, not loudly, but with the slow, ancient grace of trust returning home. And once he steps inside, he begins to feel the gravity of something real, something holy. He realizes then that he is not being tested, he is being witnessed. And being witnessed is the deepest kind of love, not to be fixed, not to be praised, but to be seen, flaws and all, and still be held in presence. That is the power of her unseen gaze. It offers no comfort to the false self. It does not flatter. It does not feed delusion. It is pure mirror, and when he looks into it, he does not see her. He sees himself. And what he does with that vision becomes the story of his becoming. Some men collapse under that weight. They run. They ridicule. They seek easier women, easier mirrors, ones who will reflect back the image they want rather than the truth they need. And that is their choice. But they will remember her, always, not for what she gave, but for what she revealed. And some men, fewer, but stronger in spirit, stay. They choose the harder road. They let the image fall apart. They let the mask burn. And in that fire, they discover that masculinity is not destroyed by feminine power. It is forged by it. For she is not his enemy. She is his echo, the call he has ignored for lifetimes, the whisper beneath all ambition, the knowing that he is more than the sum of his performance. She reminds him that strength is not domination, but depth, that to lead he must first listen, that to protect he must first feel. And what about her? She does not wait. She does not pine. She continues to rise with or without him. Her journey is not dependent on his awakening. She is the river and the mountain, the fire and the night sky, complete, evolving, whole. And because she no longer fears solitude, she is never truly alone. You too may carry that stillness, that unseen gaze, and though it may feel heavy at times, though it may repel more than it attracts, know this: it is your power. Not everyone can hold it. Not everyone should. Because what you offer is not for the many. It is for the true. Let them crumble. Let them resist. Let them call you names. You were never here to be understood by the masses. You were here to awaken kings in the bodies of men who've forgotten their crowns. And whether they rise or run is not your burden. You only need to be, and the rest will unfold as it must. In the end, the woman who embodies this silent power walks not ahead of the man, not behind him, but beside his soul. And only the man who has faced his own darkness without flinching will recognize what it means to walk beside her. She does not beckon with promises. She does not lure with fantasy. She simply is. And in that being, she filters the world around her. The wrong energies fall away. The shallow intentions evaporate. The performative crumbles. Only truth remains. Only resonance. Only the ones who've done the work, who've sat with their shame, peeled back the layers of the false self, and rebuilt their foundation not on power, but on presence, can match her. This is not love as fairy tale. This is love as initiation, a rite of passage, a sacred remembering that you are not here to be consumed, but to be met. She is not for everyone, nor should she be. For the woman who sees through everything must be cherished by someone who hides nothing. And for those who cannot meet her gaze, for those who cannot stand the weight of her presence, she does not mourn. She does not shrink. She honors the passing because she knows. The ones who leave were never meant to stay. They were only meant to show her how strong she has become. She walks on, not bitter, not hardened, but sovereign. Her love has become her own. Her silence, a sanctuary. Her gaze, a blessing and a reckoning. She is no longer waiting to be chosen. She is choosing carefully, intentionally, from wholeness, not hunger. And should she meet a man who can hold her, not possess, not cage, not worship, but hold, it will not be because she needed him. It will be because he matched what she had already become. He will not tremble at her silence. He will bow to it. He will not fear her gaze. He will meet it with steady eyes and an unshaking heart. He will not be undone by her presence. He will be reborn in it. For the man who knows himself sees her not as challenge, but as home. And the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.